So now we're going to our third and last panel session, technical issues, with the moderator, Mrs. Elena Thousaki, CEO of Carbon Positive. Elena, you may sit. Thank you. Mr. Konstantinos Stambedakis, Director of the Research, Development and Engineering Department, General Director of Firma First Engineering Solutions SA. Konstantinos, thank you very much. Captain Paul Halewood, Master Mariner, United Kingdom Hydrographic Office, Admiralty. Captain Paul. The representative of MacGregor, please. Dr. Konstantinos Rokos, CEO and Managing Director of TST International SA, Governor in the International Propeller Club of the United States, International Port of Piraeus, Greece. Kostas, thank you. And last but not least, Spiridon Zolotas, Area Manager, Greece and Cyprus, RINA Hellas Ltd. Our panelists are getting their positions. We are a little bit late, but our seminars will start at 4 o'clock exactly. So and MacGregor and Admiralty. Admiralty seminar will be in this room, and MacGregor's seminar will be in Ypsilon room, in the first floor. So, Elena, you may take the floor and start the panel. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's very difficult for me to actually make you switch your minds after this really nice speech from the Mayor of Enousses. But welcome to the technical session, and the technical session that is a very challenging one. It's always very difficult to follow, but usually the technical sessions are the most informative ones. So for the ones that they want to go and because they're hungry, I will give you straight away the conclusion of this technical panel, which is the following. Environment, energy efficiency, and maritime safety are the three key factors for any decision making in shipping. Now, for the ones that want to stay with us and join our distinguished panelists here, we will follow the KISS approach. Now, don't get excited. KISS approach is keep it simple and straightforward. We are going to cover 5 topics, and I will start with a small introduction in order to have a more structural and quick, let's say, discussion. The global shipping community is entering into a challenging future. Key environmental regulations coming into force, both regional and global, to address emissions. That means SOx, NOx, PM, CO2, as well as ballast water management and maritime safety. Compliance is made challenging by a number of factors: financial, technological, and operational. The cost of compliance will be high for the maritime industry, and the business consequences of wrong decisions may be severe. So we're very lucky here to actually have the experts in different areas, starting with cargo handling solutions, ECTIS, ballast water treatment, LNG, and of course, we are even luckier to actually have a real expert on how to operate the vessel. Altogether, we are going to provide valuable information on how to create a sustainable shipping strategy. We are going to start with our first topic, which is the present and future regulations. And I think this is a very hot issue at the moment. And we have regulations starting in 2013, going to 20 with SAMP and EDI. Then we have 2015 with a limit on SOx. Then we have monitoring, reporting, and verification coming up from EU. And then later on, we have more to come, including ballast water treatment. I would like to start with Spiros Zolotas. And I would like to ask, can the strict emission regulations from IMO drive the industry in fuel evolution? Talking now with the hat of LNG expert.
I don't know whether it will drive the industry, should drive. For the time being, it's driving everybody crazy, I think, because there are too many regulations, and we are at this stage now to understand what is going on. And then I would like to point out, listening to what Mr. Angelakos, the mayor of Enousa, said before, that he inspired us by saying other things, turning at disadvantages to advantages. I don't know whether rules sometimes can be the only drive to drive the whole business of us. Thank you for these inspiring words, let's say, that I think everybody's needing. Going back to more, let's say, things that we have to live with, like the rules, and regarding the challenges that we have, environment is a very hot topic. So we have to do something. This is definite, and the marine industry has also to put its own contribution to that. So name it emissions, air emissions, or ballast, or whatever, we have to prove that we are doing something. So in that way, regarding especially the air emissions, we have a lot of technologies, and the rules in this case is driving actually new solutions. There are techniques well known for years. LNG, for which I could contribute a little bit more, it's something new. Is something new for as fueling the ships. Is not, let's say, is not new. Is in the earth, let's say, for millions of years. So in order to get the advantages that it has, we have to build strong rules and regulations. At the time being, we don't have so many. IMO is building its own rules for the gas-fueled ships. There are also some, for the time being, some guidelines. Classification societies like RINA that I represent is having their own rules that are in compliance with these IMO guidelines, but there is a lot to be done. Also, administrations, we have been ambassadors before here, have to take proper actions in order to have facilities, bunkering infrastructure, a lot of things to be discussed before we arrive to this conclusion.
Yes, we're going to discuss this a little bit later, but now let me just ask Dr. Rockos, do you think this is a threat now or an opportunity for the ship owner having to deal with all this, new regulations?
Thank you very much for the question. I would say that we can clarify, first of all, that there are two categories interested in the rules and regulation. One is pertaining to the new building ships, for which the ship owners are the people who will take the decision what kind of ship to acquire and buy. And I believe that nowadays the shipyards have included all these new features in the package of their proposals. I think that the difficult part is on the ship managers trying to implement new rules and regulation and to adapt the old technology to the new systems and equipments. For that, I would say that there is a feedback from the general industry that there are systems capable to be installed on board and provide the results we would like to have in compliance with the new rules and regulation. But unfortunately, I would say that these systems are not tested at sea. Sea is a very different environment, and I would say it would be needed some time for verification of their implementation. On the other hand, definitely taking, the question as a part of SWOT analysis, there are strong points to implement the new rules and regulation, since they give an additional development on the existing safety systems, on the environmental systems, fuel saving, and after all, the prestige of the companies implementing the systems. But on the other hand, I would say that there are difficulties. The complexity of implementation is one point. The funding is very important, because nowadays, unless we consider the last couple of months when the market was a little bit better, funding is a little bit difficult, because this is an added value to the initial investment, and depreciation is quite difficult. The crew also, is a key factor, and the difficulty and opposition to any change is also an issue. Thank you.
I'm not sure whether I understood now that it's an opportunity or a threat. I think you highlight more threats than actual opportunities. but I hope that we will change this sort of climate. Now, moving to a more tangible thing, which is the ECDIS. How do port state control currently view the adoption of ECDIS?
ECDIS is a fundamental shift in the way in which we navigate. That affects navigational safety, that affects the environment. Port state control are key at this moment in time in enforcing the standards that are required to safely and effectively operate ECDIS. Although we're looking at mandation dates which could be 3-4 years away for some vessels or just 18 months away for some other vessels, port states are very strict now. If you've got an ECDIS and you're using ECDIS, then there are a number of requirements which you must prove clearly that you're operating it safely.
For the new builds ECDIS, I think that there is a new rule now coming on for this year or next year for having ECDIS for the cargo.
The last 3 years there's been the new builds have been gradually coming, and then next year existing passenger ships. The year after it's existing tankers over
the existing tankers, right?
So that's really going to be the crunch period. And if we look at passenger ships, then they've been working very hard to achieve ECDIS requirements, but they're still not quite there, and there's still a lot of things they need to do. And really the message is, don't wait for mandation date. If you do, then you will get caught out, because there are port state controls now detaining vessels and vetting inspectors doing similar things, because ships operators, masters are not properly trained, haven't got proper procedures, haven't set up the proper safety standards for ECDIS.
Right. That gives me a very good actual opportunity to go to the ballast water trading system and basically ask Konstantinos and just to give us a little bit of the status of the convention with ballast water as today and what is happening on the United States Coast Guard development for the phase 1 and phase 2. There's huge confusion basically around this issue. When is the right time to actually start looking for ballast water? What do we need to actually look before we make any selection? But most important is to actually trying to clarify what's happening in terms of the convention, when this ratification is going to be happened.
Right. I wish I knew, but anyway, I'm trying to clarify things. As per today, 38 countries have ratified the convention, which represents something like 30.4% of the world fleet tonnage. According to the convention, 30 countries, IMO members, should ratify the conventions. This criteria has already been fulfilled, but these 30 countries should represent at least 35% of the world fleet tonnage, and this criteria has not fulfilled yet. Rumors say that sometime in the beginning of 2014, a big flag or two smaller flags will ratify the convention, which brings us in the position to have the convention into force beginning of 2015. And this is as far as IMO concerned. But correctly, you have mentioned United States Coast Guard, and this is a completely different thing. For the last 10 years, we're hearing United States Coast Guard trying to follow their own rules and trying to establish their own discharge standards. Fortunately, since not last July, the July before, July 2012, United States have accepted the final rule for the quality of ballast water discharge within the US waters. According to these rules, phase 1 is fully aligned with IMO discharge standards. And phase 2 has been postponed until 2020, which brings us in the position to have a clear target as a vendor and the ship owners to have a clear understanding what type of system should install. So the type of system which should install is a system which complies with IMO standards, D2 standards. So phase 2 is not in the market yet, and my personal opinion is that it will never come into force. There are so many technical difficulties of achieving this.
No, you don't help us again, because if somebody wants to actually start ordering your system,
Right.
Based on what standards is going to order it?
based to the IMO D2 standards or Phase 1 United States Coast Guard standard.
Well, what if phase 2 comes along and there is a different type of standard?
Right. That's a good question. This is not my answer, but the answer which came from United States Coast Guard headquarters. In case a vessel installing a system today, this vessel should comply with Phase 1 or D2 IMO D2 standard. In case in the future stringent standards will apply, these standards do not have retrospective action. So systems installed today will follow today's rules. System installed in 2020 or when Phase 2 standard will start coming into force, they will install the new systems.
Right. Wow. Okay. It's very difficult to actually make a decision, but we will discuss a little bit later about this. Now, with cargo handling solutions, there are not any regulations, of course. However, when there is, let's say regulations that are related to the energy efficiency, but when there is a new equipment comes along, how the regulation can affect the design of this, i.e. if a ship owner wants to have an energy efficient vessel, an eco vessel, what sort of cargo handling solutions can be introduced in order to cover this aspect?
Of course, I saw that
Nice.
Okay.
that wasn't me.
It wasn't you. Does this work? The microphone work of Jonas?
Is it open? Yeah, it's okay.
Can you?
Anyway, I tried to speak with a quite loud voice. Can you hear me? Good. What we see that the rules that or regulations that are affecting us is what is regulating in port when you're operating the cargo handling equipment. And then you're talking about emissions from auxiliary engines and so on. And what we can do as a supplier for cargo handling equipment is trying to find as much energy efficient solution as we can to reduce these impacts on the regulations at port.
Okay, we're going to move now on the measures and the systems are in place because as we know that the regulation actually drives the innovation and the technologies and the solutions. And I would like to start with Dr. Rockos, actually, and talk about, of course, this is your secret, but you can always relieve with us. You know, what are the best practices and measures that the ship owner must adopt in order to operate, you know, in this competitive environment?
Yes, thank you for this question, but I would like to clarify this is an issue for the ship manager, not the ship owner. So we have seen the last 15 years many management systems implemented. Firstly, the safety and environmental protection system, which we have implemented long ago with the ISM, and we have developed it several times, adapting other subsystems, risk management, risk assessment, benchmarking. This I think we all know, and there is enough experience on these systems now. The second important system, in my opinion, is the operational management system. This is something which provides actually the results and the performance of the ship and actually brings the revenues to the company. This is something which is very important and should be developed more by the companies. There are no rules particularly for this management system, but mostly this system is driven by the experience of the former captains, and this is something which the ship management companies capitalize and create a more systematic system to handle properly the cargo. The cargoes have been changed recently to more dangerous cargoes, and this is very, very important. On the other hand, we have seen the energy efficiency management system and the recent implementation and creation of the SEMP, by which we have declared several measures, actually, to improve efficiency, energy efficiency of the ships, and actually to save fuel. Fuel is a very important contributor of the cost for the ship's operation, particularly with today's price. So I believe that the management companies should focus on that and implement in reality by getting experience from the system, from the industry's benchmarking, and provide something more than a simple manual onboard the ships. Lastly, I would say that one and very important management system is the plant maintenance system, by which the ship sustains its viability and water tightness. This is something which needed, again, there is room for improvement and also needed more investigation by capitalizing now the experience of the chief engineers and make it more systematic in order to create particular ways to handle maintenance and use of spares. I think that by that I have covered the topic. In case the ship management company will extend their procedures to these issues, I would say that they will perform very well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your answer. And this goes more to the operational side of the measures. On the technical side, do you have an opinion there, a clear opinion? You must have seen many different vendors with technical solutions on energy efficiency. Do you see any future on this?
Of course, of course. First of all, I would like to reclaim what you have said in a previous conference, that there is a lot of data collected by the ships, but it's very difficult to interpret and create some decisions. So this is a very important point in which the companies should pay more attention.
So basically, to actually look at the data, start measuring first.
Exactly.
All right, examine the
versus
data.
benchmarking.
Yes, create a benchmark internally, externally.
Exactly.
And then start making decision of what sort of technical measures they should take.
To make it a part of the decision-making process.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Now, Spiros, when it comes to SOx, the solution there is LNG, scrubbers, or low sulfur fuel to comply basically with ECA's rule.
Yes.
Well, I mean, you have the hat of LNG now, but you have different hats. So.
No, all of them have the same result in the end. I mean, you can reduce the SOx, but I would like to agree a little bit with what Mr. Rocco said before regarding the management companies, that definitely up to now, especially the Greek management companies, know very well how to reduce their costs, to take the best advantage of their fuel consumption, etc., etc. Now we have to provide them with some more tools to be even better, because things and times are changing. So these techniques, like scrubbers, is a very well-known technique, is nothing very, let's say, exotic, but there are various solutions, could be the appropriate solution in the ECA areas. LNG is a little bit more complicated, as we said before, from the rules, and maybe we could discuss a couple of details further on. The use of low sulfur fuel is, of course, available right now. The question that I would like to pose, that I think, in my opinion, is what will happen in the future regarding prices? Because it's a matter of price of the scrubbers that is in a certain level today, price of the LNG that is supposed to go further down. I mean LNG installations, because LNG price around the world, there is no LNG price around the world, too much differences. And then what will be the price of the low sulfur fuel in the future? So if you put all these parameters together, I think is a real nightmare for persons like Mr. Rokos or ship management companies to take decisions in what to choose from the three. For the time being, I would say there are readily available solutions that somebody could go on with.
You're such a good consultant.
I don't know.
Just say basically, it depends.
I said only
which
questions.
is always the typical answer of a consultant. It depends, of course. I can see your point. However, if I was a ship owner and asking you, what shall I do in my new build, in order to comply with ECA, what would you, recommend? It's very difficult to actually come up, let's say, with a decision right now whether to actually install a scrubber or to have a dual fuel engine.
Yes. It all depends, sorry to interrupt you, Elena, it all depends on how much you are in the ECA. If you have a vessel that is strictly in the ECA areas, of course, LNG could be an alternative or one of the first priorities. Scrubbers are definitely useful.
But it's always very difficult to actually know because you have an asset, you may actually trade this asset, it's a very competitive market now, so you cannot actually limit.
Then there is another discussion about existing ships or new buildings, because a different thing to have a vessel with 25 years of age in front of you. You could invest on a scrubber or an LNG system, and it's much different having a vessel of 12 years of age that you have more limited time to pay back. So
yes. Now going back to ECDIS. Now, what are the current policy and the procedures that are required for the adoption of ECDIS? Yeah.
It depends. So no, I was very much encouraged by that question, and Dr. Rocco's perfect, because there you're concentrating very much on operating manuals and planned maintenance and the importance of that. And that really plays into what we're talking about here with ECDIS, because the key words you're using there was the experience of the onboard master, the experience of the engineers in order to develop onboard operating procedures and planned maintenance. The issue with ECDIS is there isn't much experience, and it is very much a software computer-generated system. So for seafarers, sailors, mechanical engineers, a lot of the issues are not logical. You either know them or don't know them. So the development of plant maintenance, the development of proper procedures is probably the #1 stumbling block at the moment. That shipping companies need the assistance and help of people who understand this as a system. But if we get it right, then the benefits are huge. And again, talking now, as you are, on fuel consumption, there's certainly one company who attributes saving 1% of their annual fuel bill due to the proper adoption of ECDIS. That's a lot of money.
Yes. Now, how are you going to measure that? It's another thing.
They measure that quite not on it depends. They measure it on ships operating with ECDIS on the same routes against ships which are operating on paper charts on the same routes over a number of years. And
right, liners, basically, so it's easy to measure it.
Liners, spot markets, but
markets,
yeah. And they've looked at the efficiency of ECDIS, particularly in passage planning and execution of passage planning. But they had to achieve that by getting expertise, maybe from hydrographic offices or from other people who understand the best use of ECDIS. The big mistake is thinking, because I can navigate on paper charts, I can navigate on ECDIS. Trying to force that same policies and procedures into a different way doesn't work.
Right. Now goes to ballast water treatment. And Konstantinos, don't say it depends. Okay, what are the standards and requirements for compliance, both with IMO and US? And what type of approval is needed? In the last MEPC, there were lots of approvals on ballast water trading systems, and there's always a question that a ship owner asks, what sort of approval do you have? So,
okay, that doesn't depend. So that's clear, straightforward. According to the last MEPC, 35 systems have been type approved. So these are the number of systems that a ship owner could install on their vessels today. Before installing a system, you need actual 2 certificates. One is the IMO type approval, which actually is the type approval which is issued by class or recognized authorities who has been fully addressed by the flag. Okay, the type of IMO type approval is been issued by the flag or recognized authorities who have been authorized by the flag to do so. Like in Norway, DNV does the job instead of Norwegian flag. The second certificate that you require is the class type approval, which is actually the type approval which deals with the components that the system has been built of, material of construction, safety countermeasures, and if the system has been designed according to marine standard rules. So these are the 2 certificates that are required for a ballast water treatment system to be installed on board of the vessel. Additional to this, lately we have the United States Coast Guard. So United States Coast Guard clearly requires for a United States Coast Guard type approval, which is additional to the two before mentioned approvals. United States Coast Guard is developing nowadays its own testing regime, how to test the system before obtaining this sort of type approval. Due to the fact that these procedures are not fully completed, United States Coast Guard have developed this, let's say, solution, permanent solution, which is called AMS, Alternate Management System. According to this designation, it's not actually an approval, it's not a certificate, it's a designation. A vessel can install a system which has this AMS designation, which means that that system, the testing results of this system have been checked, reviewed by a United States Coast Guard, and have been proved that they are performing according to IMO D2 standards. So it's only the paperwork that they're changing. This AMS has a duration of 5 years, but this is a critical point. It's not 5 years after the system will receive the AMS. It's 5 years after the specific vessel which is installing an AMS system should comply with United States final rule.
Right.
Which means that if a vessel should comply in 2016, it can use an AMS system until 2021. And this is something which creates a confusion. This is clear. It's 5 days after the date the specific vessel should comply with United States Coast Guard rules.
So the compliance date, basically. Right. And shall I assume that your company, which is actually a Greek company and is the only company that produce marine equipments in ballast water treatment, and congratulate this. Of course, you have experience of 30 years, but I think it's a very, very good try, and I hope that the Greek ship owners will support you. But shall I assume that all the certifications that you just mentioned, your system has it?
Yes, yeah, I'm saying that with a big smile on my face because it's such a huge effort of achieving all these these certificates, and there's a lot of knowledge and cost involved. And we have managed with our group of experts to achieve all these certificates. And I have to mention at this point that ErmaFirst was the 23rd company worldwide which received an IMO type approval, and the 13th company that received an AMS from United States Coast Guard. So ErmaFirst ballast water treatment system can be installed in any vessels from now on and onwards.
Thank you. Jonas, how a cargo handling solution can bring environmental benefits, efficiency, and operability?
Thank you. Now it's working. What we see, it comes back to what I said for the first question about energy efficiency, and to have a lower power consumption when you're doing the cargo handling.
If you could give us some examples that...
Yeah, with our electric solutions, it's 30% lower power consumption compared to a hydraulic traditional solution. And this is actually then reducing the size of the generators that are needed.
And in terms of operation, is this...
In terms of operation, it's so that the electric solutions, they are more precise in their control. And then you have a much faster positioning of the cargo, and if you look for a container vessel, that's very crucial to have the positioning. And if you can speed up the positioning, you speed up the whole cargo handling operation, and then you can spend less time in port, and either you choose to take down the speed of the vessel when you're traveling, going to the next port, or you're adding in a trip per year.
Yes, it's the little details that they actually matter when you make a choice even for your own, for your equipment. Now we will move to the different topic, which is the technological challenges. And of course, every technology choices comes with its own set of risks. That means that makes the investment decisions very difficult. So I'm going to start with Dr. Rokas again. And what are the challenges to actually meet regulation? Is the technology mature to support the regulation? How important is the human factor and the effectiveness of the measures and the systems?
Of course, thank you. First of all, I would like to say that nowadays, looking at the forthcoming rules and regulation, we see a big difference. In the past, we had to implement systems mostly by using papers. Now, we have to adapt systems, machinery, which are quite sophisticated and not yet proved sufficient for the purpose we need. So actually, this is something new. And the first thing that is that the ship managers should find a way to adapt the systems, put them inside the vessel, and create a new system for them for installation, operation, and maintenance. So definitely, this is an additional burden to the crew, and I think it will take some time to see some tangible results. This is a great difference from what we had in the past. Of course, since the ship owners now have not too much reserves to spend for the new equipments to capitalize on the assets value, which cannot pay them back, it's very difficult to say that the criteria for the buying and installing such equipment will not be the cost. Of course, there are systems like ECDIS, which definitely is a system which pays back the owners. But I think that in the recent environment, it will take some time for the owners to decide and buy the proper equipment. And I would say that for the ship manager, it's very important to have on board the right equipment, because by that, we'll make the job correctly and will fulfill the requirements by the rules. The second thing is the monitoring and securing performance. The results should be monitored properly, and the results should be tangible, because the ship manager will be liable at the first stage when the port state control will go on board and check and verify the content of what is at stake. I mean, what is the reference. So we have two tiers now. We have two tiers, the ship owners trying to save money as much as possible because mainly of the market, and the ship managers trying to secure that the system will be implemented, will give the proper results. So I think that this is a little bit difficult balance, and I think that this can be solved maybe by giving a trial period for the managers to implement the system and provides feedback to the authorities and regulators to see what is the reality. Because what is missing now from the new rules is the reality and the implementation of the new equipments. So I think that there is a lot of discussion about all this, but I cannot provide you the correct reply. Thank you.
It depends, again. No, just because you mentioned ECDIS, I'll just pass this question, of course, to you, Captain, and ask you, there are some maintenance issues that we need to know with regards to ECDIS. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on this?
Yeah, we're finding a lot of issues with ECDIS. People purchase an ECDIS, type approve, happy with that, and then they do very little maintenance. But what we need to realize is it's a computer-based system. And if it's not properly maintained, one, it's not going to function, but secondly, you might not achieve SOLAS standards. And a very interesting, beyond the answer I was thinking of there, is that of the 1st of January 2014, there's a change in the way in which the software has to operate on ECDIS. That system of upgrades has been available for years and years and years. In the United Kingdom Hydrographic Office, now we've only had 40% of the vessels actually change, and by the 1st of January, which is only a few weeks away, 60% will not be able to use their ECDIS. And if they're an ECDIS-dependent vessel, primary navigation, they will be outside of SOLAS. And that's a basic planned maintenance concept. And it will take no more than 2 minutes for someone on the bridge of that ship to actually activate and do that software properly. But because no one's thought about it, no one's got the experience, no one's considered it, it's not in the planned maintenance system, it's not a part of it, and then you're all of a sudden going to get vessels in trouble.
And so how do you solve the problem? As Admiralty, for instance.
We solve the problem by coming out and talking to people and saying,
by
are
calling
you
them
aware?
and say, you know, it's a...
Absolutely, and I could show you, I would show you if we had the time, and there's YouTube videos on how to do it on every single system, but it's no good saying it's all there on the internet and there's all these books. You have to come out to events like this and come to the ship owners and ship managers and say, are you aware of these issues? Because they're not logical. I bought an ECDIS, it said it's type approved, I didn't realise I had to do all this maintenance. And that's the logical part which isn't there. We're used to logical systems. But again, as I say, now as we move to more technology, logic isn't there.
Since you mentioned the maintenance, actually I mentioned the maintenance issues, Jonas, what about cargo handling? What are the maintenance and service issues there?
Yeah, if you look at the electric solutions, there are so that it's so much less moving components in an electric crane. It's basically the electric motor and the winches. Instead of a complete hydraulic system with a lot of small moving components inside. So the planned maintenance is much less, of course. And also with the longer lifetime of major components, electric motors, they are rarely to fail compared to a hydraulic motor. But of course, then there are concerns when you're talking about this frequency drive that we are working with, where many people see it as a black box, this converter and inverter. It's just a box with a small display and some LED lamps blinking. But the thing is that they are so easy to replace. You just take them out and plug in a new one. It's plug and play. And it's, if you look at the hydraulic component, you can take the hydraulic motor. You're not taking it apart inside the crane or wherever and changing a piston. Then you remove the complete unit, install a new one, send it for repair to have it for the next time. And then you can do the same with electric equipment.
Right, yes, it sounds easier in this way. Now, Konstantinos, what are the installation and operating and maintenance challenges? I know that there are a lot actually in ballast water treatment. Yes, if you can quickly actually tell us the main challenges there.
Okay, installation. Good planning. Good planning is required for a good installation, especially for existing vessels, because existing vessel has been designed to accommodate any ballast water treatment system. So we hardly ever find any available space there. So we have to make our system in pieces and then install pieces all over around the engine room. So this is a big challenge. The second challenge for the installation is the ballast water pump capacity and head. As I mentioned previous, existing vessels hasn't been designed to accommodate the ballast water treatment system. That means that the ballast water pump doesn't have sufficient head to compensate the pressure drop caused by a ballast water treatment system. And of course, energy. These systems they're consuming energy, depending on the technology. Some systems, like based on UV, they consume a lot of energy. Some electrolytic systems consume less energy, but still they consume some energy. So there are vessels today that they don't have an energy surplus. So what these vessels do, or what the operators will do. So these are installation issues that we have to face in the near future. Now about maintenance and operation, frankly speaking, we and no one has experience on that, since ballast water treatment systems are new systems, okay? All of us, and meaning all the vendors, have our own standard maintenance procedure, routine procedure, troubleshooting procedure, and we're coming up with these nice spreadsheets calculating the operating and the maintenance cost. But none of them have been verified. So now it depends on the vessel type and size and on the knowledge of the vendor and the ship owner to calculate this possible maintenance and operation cost. Although, depending on the technology, there are some principles, like electrolytic technology is a more long-lasting technology. It doesn't require a lot of maintenance there because you have just an electrolytic cell, you apply some current, and that's it. From the other hand side, you have ozone generators that they required a lot of equipment, different auxiliary equipment in order to produce this ozone. So this equipment by default needs more maintenance since it incorporates more auxiliary equipment. As per today, we're pretty confident that the technical department of shipping companies, they're really well educated on how to maintain a system, if it's a ballast water treatment system or it's a bow thruster, they have a lot of knowledge there. And depending on the vendor, the ballast water treatment vendor, how close will be next to the ship owner, this maintenance, let's say, uncertainty will be resolved after the installation of the system.
It sounds very challenging to actually install a system like this. Very quick, Spiros, to you now with LNG. And it doesn't depend. Pros and cons, merits, demerits, using LNG.
Just a brief comment on what Konstantinos said before. I would like to take the advantage. He said that there are complications in the installation sometimes. And this comes back to our first question that you said, if regulations are driving the industry. And then I replied to you, are driving us crazy a little bit, because you see, to install a system sometimes you need to increase the power in order to have the engine. So maybe you reduce the ballast problems, but you increase the air emissions. So definitely, it was not by chance that I said it was driving everybody crazy in the beginning. Going back to LNG, the things are very clear. It's a clean product as well, a clean fuel as well. LNG is producing zero practically SOx. So this is a big advantage. It's 90% less in the NOx, 90% less in the particulate matters, 25% more or less less CO2. So obviously it's a fuel that is having a lot of advantages. On the other hand, there are technologies now to use it on board, but a lot of challenges as well in order to, I could consider it not disadvantage, but difficulties we have to face. It's an extremely cold product. It's minus 160 degrees or something. It is flammable. Everybody is talking about it, but nobody wants it in his backyard because they say, okay, but keep me out of it, I don't want. So we need to solve problems like bunkering procedures. We have questions by our clients who want actually to install these systems on RoPax ships. And they are thinking, shall I do it with persons on board? Is it permitted? Do I have to disembark everybody and then make bunkering? So it's a rather complicated issue. Then it's training of the personnel on board. They are used to make normal bunkering. So it's another disadvantage, permit me to say, for the time being. As long as we are prepared, both the public opinion as well as the people to use it on board, we can turn the disadvantage to an advantage.
Right. And I mean, in terms of the large-scale adoption of LNG, what is your opinion on this?
As we said, the infrastructure is a main topic. For example, in North Europe, there are a lot of, in the fjords in Norway, for example, a lot of possibilities to deliver small quantities of LNG. In Europe, we are used to big consumers, like the whole countries, let's say, coming in. Here in Athens, we have the Revithusa plant that is giving to Athens the LNG, but it is more difficult to give. So this is a very topical issue to be solved in order to proceed to a broader advantage. But there are ports that are taking initiatives. I read the other day that the port of Antwerp, Zeebrugge, and Singapore had an initiative to sign an agreement for cooperation between them to see how to establish what are the problems to be solved. There is a lot of risk analysis to be done on that. What could happen in cases of a vessel? We had this morning a cruise ship colliding to the pier of Piraeus Port. The minister said that it is the first case that happened. Imagine if it was LNG on board. You had to face these kind of things. So it's rather complicated, the issue.
Yes, and that actually may take quite a long time. I don't think that it's something that once can actually, in a new build, take into consideration, knowing that the adoption may actually come after 10, 20 years.
Yes.
Okay. Now, going more to a more tangible thing, which is the cost. And performance, of course, and cost-benefit analysis. I will start with Jonas. How an efficient cargo system can be translated into energy savings, and what is the cost between, let's say, an electrical and hydraulic? What is the difference?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's very important to sit down with the ship owner at a very early stage, way before it's being designed. Actually, just to sit down and discuss how is the trade looking that they are searching for, how to optimize the size of the vessel. First of all, it's no point in having a container vessel with 10,000 TEU if you're only carrying 80%. And then you optimize it for the trade route, and also trying to find solutions how to get as much containers as possible in each ship,
Right.
fully loaded, to utilize the capacity. And then also, of course, you're saving the environment, and at the same time you're earning money.
So it depends again, and
Yeah.
but you can't tell us, let's say, the percentage. If you have
No,
one or the other.
if you're looking at electrical contra hydraulic, then it's that answer you provided yourself. It depends. If you are able to optimize all the surrounding things,
Yeah.
if you can take down the generator sizes, but then we have the ballast water treatment, and that is playing in there also. So if you can utilize these parts, you have a return of investment after 1 year for electric solution contra hydraulic solutions.
But it does sound very complex, the term of costing. I mean, a solution that appears actually to be a cheap one may turn in the long run to be a very expensive one, because you have to take all these different parameters. Captain, what are the cost benefits of actually, when you adopt an ECDIS,
No, depend on that. So it's very simple and straightforward. I think the big mistake people make is they'll say, it costs me this much for paper charts, and how much is it going to cost? That's the wrong cost-benefit analysis altogether. The key issue of ECDIS is it will improve safety and efficiency, for sure, and therefore it's going to bring down incident claims. It's going to be more favourably looked at by insurance. It's going to be more favourably looked at by charterers and the such like. But the big issue right now with the transition to ECDIS is the amount of money shipping companies will waste if they don't have a proper transition to ECDIS. And again, I know you like numbers. So a company was quoted $50,000 to convert their 6 ships across to ECDIS. $250,000 later, and 18 months behind budget, they eventually achieved it. That's a lot of money wasted. And I see time and time again people wasting money on training that doesn't work or inefficient systems. Conversely, another company which did the job correctly, went through that very well, they presented what they had on board to the hull insurance underwriter, and they got a significant reduction in their hull insurance, and which virtually paid for all the training and everything they had done. So it balanced it off very well. So it's really got to be a long-term view on the reduction of risk by using ECDIS. But right now, the next 3 or 4 or 5 years is where shipping companies can waste a huge amount of money on not having the proper adoption and think of a proper strategy on how to adopt it.
It's a lot of money.
A lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Now, about ballast water treatment now, I know there are some costs there on the actual equipment, but there are some indirect costs as well. So can you just be a little bit more, open?
Open?
Yes, and tell us exactly what is the cost of this ballast water treatment system is going to be at the end?
What type of ship do you have? So I can help you with this. I can give you some numbers. Yeah, you correctly. There are some direct costs for compliance and some non-direct costs, okay? Obviously, direct costs are the cost of buying the equipment, otherwise you'll not be compliant. So it's the capital cost of buying the equipment.
And what cost is that? Just give us an example.
Let's say for a bulk carrier, 60K bulk carrier, 2 pumps of 800 cubic meters per hour. The price is something between 370 to 420,000 USD. And this is only the equipment, not installation cost.
Of course.
All right.
On top of that, installation cost?
All right. On top of that, depend on the shipyard. And honestly, we have seen shipyards that they charge $0 to a ship owner for a new build, of course. And there are some others that they have asked up to 266,000 USD for installing a system. We cannot understand where this cost comes from for a new build, but we can understand this high cost for retrofit. Okay, we have seen installation cost in a VLCC up to 1 million. So there's a huge cost there for installation, especially in the retrofit market. And this is a good motive for the ship owners to install for installing a system today in new builds. Even though if they have to comply in 2016, they can install a system now and they will save a lot of money from the installation cost and from the capital cost as well. Because the price now of a ballast water treatment system, they're relatively low compared to last year and definitely compared to when the convention will come into force.
So you think when the convention comes into force, the price will go up?
I'm afraid, yeah. And this is the opposite trend like all the other equipment like bin wash. And this has to do with the number of type-approved systems and the number compared to the number of vessels that should comply with the convention. So these are the direct costs. And of course, maintenance cost and operation cost is the direct cost. And as you mentioned earlier, correctly, you may buy a cheap system today, but in 2 or 3 years' time, you will spend a lot of money for maintaining and operating this system, which brings you in the position to think again, oh, maybe I had to install another system which was a bit more expensive, but the maintenance and operation cost was much lower. Okay. Indirect costs now. There are several. First of all, indirect cost when the system does not comply with D2 standards, discharge standard, which means that the vessel stay in the port off hire for a couple of days. So there's a lot of cost there. Indirect cost is the sampling. According to VGP in the United States, a vessel which have ballast water treatment systems would perform a specific number of type of chemical analysis of the treated water per year. So this is an indirect cost. Indirect cost is the maintenance which does not include it in the routine maintenance of the vendor. As an example, a UV lamp has a lifetime of 3,000 hours. But we have seen in real time that this lifetime goes to up to 1,000 hours, which instead of having that amount of money for replacing the UV lamps, you will have to triple it. So this is indirect cost, according to our opinion.
Right. If you want to sum up all these costs, of the indirect cost,
per year?
Per year, of course.
I would say something between 4,000, which is the cost of the VGP analysis, up to 20,000.
Right. Okay, now after hearing all these things, Dr. Rokas, can you just tell us, basically, because you as a ship owner, you've been bombarded by too many vendors and systems and solutions that they claim energy performance, and you have all the costs in front of you in papers, and you have advisors telling you, what you actually need to consider. There is an air of skepticism when it comes, let's say, to claims, when it comes to costs, when it comes to the present cost, to the future cost. Can you just tell us a little bit the view on that, how a ship owner makes a decision when it has all this kind of information?
Of course. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say that we as managers would like to improve our management systems in place rather than to try to install new equipment on board. I would say that the implementation of the management systems I referred before are very important to optimize and, of course, not to minimize the footprint of the vessel of our ships during the voyage. So first of all, I believe that the ship management companies should develop the existing management systems in a way that the results will be assessed and counted for, during the cost of the voyage. And this is something very important. There is a discussion for how much the disbursement account, the port expenses, will be adjusted according to the footprint of the vessel during the voyage. So this is the first thing. For the, as you said correctly, for all these equipments which should put on board, there is a skepticism as to what result this will bring. And as I said before, the owners would like always to be paid for any capitalization they are doing on board their ships. So for most of them, we feel that this is a kind of social contribution of the owners to the society. I don't think that they will get paid for all these kind of investments, which of course we believe that we should contribute to the general environmental protection. But on the other hand, the owners and the managers are expecting, and for that is needed time, to get experience, first of all, from the systems in place, and secondly, to see better prices. Because we believe, since we have seen the ballast water management systems starting 2 years ago in $1 million, and now we talk about $250,000, more or less, this is my approach, I think that if we can get it for $50,000, this will make sense. So first of all, we would like to see systems which are easily operated, easily maintained, and on the other hand, cheap. So at least to spend some money for our social contribution in the right way. Thank you.
Konstantinos, you need to drop your price a little bit until you make Dr. Rokas
just a
customer.
comment with your permission. Okay, I strongly agree with what you said about prices. Yeah, 4 years ago, actually, the prices of a ballast water treatment system were really up to the sky. Okay, exactly. 1 million. Okay, now they have dropped not to 250, but something around 400,000 USD.
Okay,
and
this is worse.
Okay. But this has a logical explanation, okay? All of us who have spent millions of developing and certifying the system. And nowadays, we're trying to build up our reference list. And for that reason, we're actually giving the equipment in a really low, cheap price, only for building up the reference and gain the knowledge. Because as you correctly mentioned earlier, all of us, we need vendors and ship operators need to gain some experience. In order to gain some experience, we need systems installed and in operation. And this is something that we haven't seen so far. So we're doing our contribution to the social service to reduce the price and have more systems installed on board of vessels, gain the experience, improve the system, waiting for the big boom which will come sometime in 2016 and onwards.
Just to give you a reply, keep in mind that of course, you sell a product, and this is respectful. On the other hand, we should adapt this product to our ballast water management system, which is quite complicated. During the water exchange, ballast exchange of the vessel during the voyage, short voyage, long voyage, is not an easy task. So it's not only the equipment, it's needed time, this system, to be adapted properly to our management system. And as far as the price is concerned, I would say that, of course, I mean, for the new building, this is something simple, because, as I said at the beginning, because this is included in the price of the vessel.
Correct.
But for the retrofit, I am a little bit skeptic how the owners will take it and the managers.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Right, then the last question in terms of cost benefit, and I think definitely this depends. Okay, I can say that for now. Spiros, it's about LNG. What is the cost is likely to be in the future? Because
I didn't bring my crystal ball.
Yeah.
So
Not this time.
Yes, not this time. Next time, maybe. I hope that you were going to escape this question to me after Mr. Rokos explaining exactly who is paying in the end of the day.
There's the bill.
And he has prepared. So he said it all. What can I add? Strictly to LNG, for a new building, up to today's prices, for installing an engine, a system, because not only the dual fuel engine or LNG engine, is the whole system that you need to install, it will add to the price of the vessel about 25%, which is a considerable amount of money. For a retrofit, this could go from, according to my values or my information, could vary from 30% to 65% of the residual value of the ship. If it is a small ship, for a small ship, could be even over 50% of the value of the vessel. So it's really an important investment. Then it all depends on how much, as we said before, the vessel will be employed in ECAs areas. And if it is over 25%, then this could have a payback period that is reasonable to do. For an MR2 tanker, for example, is reasonable. If you are 25–30% of the time in the current ECA areas, then you can, it is really an investment to do. But I will make again another question mark. What will happen when the systems, when the prices of LNG change in the future? What will happen when the ECA areas will change in the future? Maybe we have the whole Mediterranean as an ECA area, as it is, as it should be. So there are a lot of questions that really needs a crystal ball, in my opinion, and I don't know what Mr. Rokos, I think.
Do you want to add anything, Dr. Rokos, on this LNG?
I think that LNG, from the owner's perspective, is a little bit far. Far for many reasons. But of course, this is something which is coming. We all know that this is coming. Mm-hmm. Of course, the constraints referred before for the price, the future, we don't know. The fuel prices are very volatile and depends on heavily on the market trends. So I would say that it would be better to stick with what we have on hand and see somebody else starting this and then to follow. I think it's a good idea to be a follower than to be on the first line. Thank you.
I think it's a typical Greek approach to see what others do and then just be the follower, which is on the safe side. It's, it makes sense. Yes. Okay, we'll move to the last topic. Of course, the ultimate decision maker is the ship owner, and many companies struggle at the moment to survive during the difficult years ahead. So we all think that they must make considered decisions. And I can understand, Jonas, now you have, let's say, the electrical, let's say, new product in comparison to hydraulic. But, put the head of a ship owner now, okay, which is very difficult, since you're a salesperson. What is the best solution nowadays?
Yeah, I only see one solution, and that's the electric.
The electric.
Yeah. If you look at the return of investment for that one, that you can gain, if you're not able to utilize all the benefits with the downsizing of generators, you still have a return of investment for a couple of years for this investment. And then after that, it's only more earnings continuously. So
your company is pushing more the electric solution than the hydraulic.
Yeah.
And that is going to be something that, how long do you think that is going to take until the replacement is going to happen?
Yeah. First of all, we have to have a competitor that have an electric solution as well. Now we've been marketing these electric solutions for 4 years.
And there's still no competitor?
There's still no competitor that have
that
a product
tells you
out.
something, right?
But it makes the life very difficult for us because we are not compared to a similar product. You're comparing apple and pears. It's not the same thing that you're comparing. So that makes the life very tough for us. But we see definitely, we have now more than 400 cranes sold totally for the electric.
Yeah,
so we see that they are increasing all the time. ship owners are seeing benefits in each aspect or area or segment. Containers for multi-purpose, for bulk carriers. So there is upside for the electric cranes, for the electric solutions overall, because you also have the reduced risk of penalties if you're oil spillage at the port.
So in terms of safety, you mean? Okay, so full speed for electrical.
Definitely.
Then. Okay. When it comes to ECDIS, Captain, it's considered such a complex issue from a ship owner. How are we going to tackle this? What is your advice to the ship owner now?
I think it's a complex issue, and I blame the Queen of England. She's the one responsible for that. Straightforward, no depends. Because when we look at the rules and regulations governing the adoption of ECDIS, written in the Queen's English, it's the interpretation of all the words which cause the difficulties. So if we say, started off the mandation date for the adoption of ECDIS, and ECDIS must be fitted by, that's pretty straightforward. But then one person's going to turn around and say, well, fitted under the Queen's English means it's installed, but it doesn't mean you have to use it. So that then other people say, no, of course it means you have to use it. Or another rule will say you have to have an appropriate folio of paper charts. Well, that's good Queen's English. Well, 0 is a good Queen's English, so the appropriate number could be 0. No. The appropriate number's got to be full. So the problem for the ship owner is that interpretation from flag states, class, other organisations of those very simple words, but make a huge difference on how you're going to adopt it. How do we move forward on that? Really, it's looking at best practice. And if you try to hide behind those words and you play clever games, like playing some sort of Scrabble game, oh no, I can get away with this and get away with that, you will get caught out and it'll cost you more money in the end. But if you take the stringent standards and adopt that as what is the best practice, then it's pretty straightforward.
Right. But then I just actually informed me that we're running out of time and we're going to have only last question, which is going to be to Dr. Rockos and asking him older vessels versus new vessel. Which one performs best?
Definitely, this is a very interesting discussion. Could last for long, I would say. Al principle, when we compare an eco ship with an old one, under the same conditions, the same technical specification, the same operational management, then definitely the eco ship will perform better. This is our principle. On the other hand, and from what we have heard, the yard, the build of origin, the technical specification, the structure, the design are very important to the final result and to the performance of the vessel. Thus, we have seen sometimes older ships performing in practice equally with the modern ships called eco. I would say that the first thing is the proper ship management and the optimization of operation. Then, after that, the proper selection of equipment and machinery will improve the performance of the vessel. And definitely, to give the right impression and idea about the new builds versus old ships is a matter of funding. If you don't have the money, you cannot buy. And we have seen the last decade, there is a lot of tendency from the private equity funds, since the banks now are very strict and very tight in their funding facilities, to provide funding to companies for new buildings. I would say that they have not calculated correctly the useful life of these ships. And this is a very important issue, to determine correctly what kind of asset you have on hand and how long it will last. And as you know very well, with this factor, you calculate the feasibility study of the project. Lastly, I would say that, as Dr. Kusta said in another session, the biggest and the fastest saves the most This is the general idea. But I would say also the other thing I learned from the old, ship owners, that in the good market, all ships are running almost the same. And this is, I would say, a kind of arbitrage that the increased cost of fuel, which I referred before, easily anticipated with the high rate difference. And the advantage of the eco ships, let's say, easily diminished under the good, in the good market. So, in my opinion, I would say that a good and sound vessel, bought in a good price, irrelative if it is new or old, can give to the ship owners the proper return of their investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Koustas. Thank you very much, all the panelists. I would like together to congratulate them and thank you. I don't know whether we have any time for questions because it was very informative.
Yes, it was very informative, and we must finish our lunch at 4 because we have our seminars, and at 4 o'clock we must get into our seminars. We have now our cocktail. A big, big thank you. Poseidon's tried to delay our conference, but he did not succeed. We were all here. 500 people were here and exchanged views and discussed, and it's very, very important. So let's renew our next meeting, not face-to-face, because we will meet for sure before face-to-face, but next Navigator conference meeting in November or December of 14. We will see. Next year, we will have the 14th Navigator of 2014. We will not have any 13 because we don't want to bring any bad luck. Yes, Philemon, of course. It's a lucky number. Philemon, for you, it will be the 13th. For all the others, will be the 14th. So let's meet all of us next year. Thank you very, very much for being in our conference. Thank you. And during the cocktail, we also have the lottery of the gifts. So you will listen if you are lucky or not. Thank you.